good as can be. Genesis 31. At least that's where I have it, we left off. Y'all can correct me if you want to. You might want to say 41. We're getting there. We'll be there before you know it. All right. As I said, of course, we're into the patriarchs of Israel. Abraham, Isaac, and now we're on Jacob. Jacob, who was known as a deceiver. That's essentially what his name means. His parents sent him back to his mother's family, really Abraham's family, and to get a wife. He goes back. He falls madly in love. He gets deceived because he gets Leah, the older sister. Then he gets Rachel, the younger sister, the love of his life. And he's been there for a while, working for Laban, who is his mother's brother. Yeah, his mother's brother. And so we there, chapter 31. Excuse me. Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob was taking away all that was our fathers, and from what belonged to our father, he has made all this wealth. What's that sound like? Greed. That's what I have written on my Bible. Greed. And you don't hear a lot. You hear, we know Laban has Leah and Rachel, who must have been the oldest, and then sons. This is really about the only place you hear about any sons that he has. And they don't like the fact that their brother-in-law seems to be getting richer than daddy, which means they're not going to inherit as much. So they're a little on the greedy side. Verse 2 says, Jacob saw the attitude of Laban, and behold, it was not friendly towards him as formerly. Laban's got a little greed or anger brewing in him as well. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your father and to your relatives, and I will be with you. So there's a promise of God to Jacob, the same promise we have. I'll be with you. Verse 4, so Jacob sent, and he called Rachel and Leah to his flock in the field, and he said to them, I see your father's attitude, that is not friendly towards me as formerly, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. However, God did not allow him to hurt me. If he spoke thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth speckled. And if he spoke the stripe shall be your wages, then all the flock brought forth stripe. Now, they made an agreement back in chapter 30, 31 through 34, where Jacob goes to Laban and says, hey, I've served 14 years for your daughters. Let me go. And he says, what should I pay you? And he says, okay, you take all the solid, I'll take everything else. And Laban agreed to it. But it seems as though along the way, Laban said, no, just a strike, no, just a spotted. He kept changing what was going to be his payment. Verse 9, God said, thus God has taken away your father's livestock and given them to me. And it came about at the time when the flock were mating that I lifted up my eyes and I saw a dream. And behold, the male goats which were mating were striped, speckled, and molted, which means spotted or blotches, streaks. Kind of a marble look is what molted means. Then the angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob, here I am, he said. He said, lift up your eyes and see that all the male goats which are mating are striped, speckled, and molted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. And he says, I am the God of Bethel. Now remember, Bethel, anytime you see E-L, E-L stands in Hebrew, of course, for God. So this is for God. Beth represents house. And so Bethel is house of God. So he says, I am the God of the house of God, where you anointed a pillow, which he did on his way there to Padamaram, where you made a vow to me. Now arise, leave this land, and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah said to him, do we still have any portion or inheritance in our father's house? Are we not reckoned by him as foreigners? For he has sold us and has entirely consumed our purchase price. Surely all the wealth which God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children now. Now then, what? Do whatever God has said to you. Of course, they weren't sold, but I guess in a way he did sell them, because Jacob had to work for his wives, and it kind of went with the custom of the day as far as like paying a dowry and so forth. But in that day, a woman went from their father's house to their husband's house. And essentially that's what they're talking about, is we're not in our father's house anymore. We're with you. You've worked for us, you paid what was supposed to be done, and so we're yours. Do whatever God wants you to take and do. So we get to verse 17. Jacob arose and he put his children, his wives, upon camels, and he drove away all his livestock, all his property which he had gathered, his acquired livestock which he had gathered in Padamaram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. And when Laban had gone to shear his flock, then Rachel stole the household idols which were her father's. What does that tell us about Rachel? What's that?
She steals.
Sorry, she's a thief.
And she worships idols, apparently.
She's not fully dedicated to God, which her father evidently was not fully dedicated to God. Remember, God only called Abraham to leave his family. Not his brothers, not his father, not even Lot, his nephew. He called him to follow him. And Laban is not a descendant of Abraham. Now, he's a descendant of Haran, which was Abraham's father. And, think about even us today. I think about Rachel, when she's doing what Daddy did. How many times do children do what their parents do? I'm not talking about teenage years. We all know teenage years, they do their own thing, right? But most of the time, they follow their parents, as long as the parents are decent parents. And so that essentially is what Rachel's done. Daddy worshiped this little God and this little God. I'm going to worship. And maybe she had some deep hatred towards her father because he sold her, and who knows? She's a thief, as Jerry said. Verse 20, Jacob deceived Laban, the Armenian, which was the area that they were in. Padamaram is Armenian, or at least in this day and time, not modern day, by telling him that he was fleeing, or deceived Laban by not telling him he was fleeing. So he fled with all that he had, and he arose and he crossed the Euphrates River, and he set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. Now this would be on the eastern side of the Jordan River. When it was told to Laban on the third day, so now Jacob and herd have been traveling for 3 days, but he's got all those flocks, he's got his children, etc. and so forth. He's not moving at a very fast pace. So on the third day, Laban is told Jacob has fled. Then he took his kinsmen, probably his sons and others, with him, and he pursued him a distance of 7 days' journey, which would be about 300 miles. Just think about how far 300 miles is, and traveling that by camel at best. It took him 7 days, and he overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. So they traveled a pretty decent ways. God came to Laban, the Armenian, in a dream of the night and said to him, "Be careful that you do not speak to Jacob, either good or bad." Laban caught up with Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country. And Laban with his kinsmen camped in the hill country of Gilead. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and did not tell me so that I might have sent you away with joy and song and timbrel and lyre, and did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Now you have done foolishly." They're not his sons, they're his grandsons. But in that day and time, it might be referred to as just sons or fathers, and could be talking about grandfather or great-grandfather. 29 says, "It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful, do not speak either good or bad to Jacob.' Now, you have indeed gone away because you long greatly for your father's house, but why did you steal my gods?" Little g. Jacob replied to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. The one with whom you find your gods shall not live in the presence of our kinsmen. Point out what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself." Jacob did not know Rachel had stolen him. If he did, he wouldn't have made that comment, because she was the love of his life. 33. So Laban went to Jacob's tent, and to Leah's tent, and to the tent of the two maids, but he didn't find him. They went into Leah's tent and went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent, and Rachel had taken the household items, put them in the camel's saddle, and she sat on them. Laban felt through all the tent, but he didn't find them. She said to her father, "Let not my lord be angry, for I cannot rise before you, for the manner of woman is upon me." So he searched, but did not find the household items. Who's deceiving who now? Then Jacob became angry and contended with Laban, and Jacob said to Laban, "What's my transgression? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? Though you have felt through all my goods, what have you found in all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two." Now, if God hadn't spoken to Laban, yet he would have been fighting mad. God calmed him down before he got there. 38. All right, 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten the rams of your flocks. That which was torn of the beast I did not bring to you, I bore the loss myself. You required it in my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the frost by night. My sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. So think about 20 years. So 20 years he served him. He has 11 sons by 4 wives. So at best, the oldest, Reuben, is 19. And you can trickle it on down however you want to. There might have been a little overlap because there was 4 wives, not 1. But the oldest was only, I would say Reuben was 19 at this point, when he's heading back home. So, I did a little guesstimation. Of course, Joseph is his favorite because that Rachel's, he's probably only about 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that area at this point. Old enough to know better, but still young enough to get in trouble. 42. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac has not been for me, had not been for me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the toil of my hands, so he rendered judgment last night. Then Laban replied to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all you see is mine. Well, that's an outright lie now, isn't it? A little more greed coming up. But what can I do this day to these my daughters or their children whom they have borne? So now come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. And Jacob took a stone and he set it up as a pillar. Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. So they took stones, made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Now Laban called it, J. I ain't going to try to pronounce that one. And Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me this day, therefore his name Gilead. And Gilead, both of them mean heap of witness, heap of witness. Verse 49, and Mitzvah, which means watchtower, and Mitzvah, for he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent one from the other. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you take wives beside my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold the pillar which I have set between you and me. This heap was a witness, and the pillar is a witness that I will not pass by this heap to you for harm, and you will not pass by this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his kinsmen to the meal, and they ate the meal, spent the night on the mountain. Early in the morning, Laban arose, kissed his sons, grandsons, and his daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. What to see probably out of that chapter, long chapter, is Laban the deceiver, Jacob the deceiver was deceived a number of times for 20 years. But God provided. Jacob even told Laban, says, if it hadn't been for God, I left empty-handed. He might even kept his daughters and kept his grandchildren. Because what's one man going to do against others? And so God was with, as he told him he would be, with Jacob. Same's true for us today. God has said he will always be with us to the end of the age. Matthew 28:20. He really, throughout the Bible, is telling us, believe in me, follow me, and I'll protect you. I'll be with you. I'll guide you. I'll do everything that he can for us. It may not seem like it at times, because you think about Jacob. Hey, what do you mean you're changing my wages? This isn't the wife I worked for 7 years. But God was still with him. And we can have maybe not exactly the same type of circumstances that he had, but life will deal us blows unexpectedly. Yet God is still with us. We still got a little time. See if we can run through 32. All right, he is headed back to see his dad, but who he's fearing is with dad is his brother Esau. Why is he fearing Esau? Anybody remember? He wanted to kill him because he lost his blessing as well as the birthright he sold to him. And Mama heard him and said, go away. Now, by the time he gets back, his mother evidently has passed. Isaac's still alive, but Rebekah has passed. So verse 32, verse 1. Now Jacob went on his way. The angel of God met him. Jacob said, when he saw them, this is God's camp. So he named the place Mahanaim. Double camp. Man's camp, God's camp. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. Esau was the founder or father of the country of Edom, which is south of Israel during Saul's time, David's time, Solomon's time. Many times Israel rules over that country. And other times they had their own rules. But they're saying, thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus say to your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen and donkeys and flocks and male and female servants. I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find favor in your sight. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau. Furthermore, he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. And Jacob started shaking in his boots at that very moment. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and the herds and the camels into two companies. He said, if Esau comes to one and attacks it, then the company which is left will escape. Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, and I will prosper you. I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and of all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant. For with my staff only I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become too cumbrous. Now this is a prayer, Jacob, goes down through verse 12. And notice he starts off by saying who God is, and he's also saying, God, you said this. And there's nothing wrong if you read Scripture, say, God, your word says, God, you're always going to be with me, and telling God that. And that's essentially what we see Jacob has done. So back to his prayer. Verse 11, deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he will come and attack me and the mothers with the children. For you said, I will surely prosper you and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which is too great to be numbered. So he spent the night there. Then he selected from what he had with him a present for his brother Esau. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove of itself, and said to his servants, pass on before me, put a space between droves. He commanded the one in the front, saying, when my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong, and where are you going, and to whom are these animals in front of you belong? Then you shall say, these belong to your servant Jacob. It is a present sent to my lord Esau, and behold, he is behind us. Then he commanded also the second and the third, and all those who followed the drove, saying, after this manner you shall speak to Esau. When you find him, you shall say, behold, your servant Jacob also is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me. Then afterward I will see his face, and perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on before him, while he himself spent the night in the camp. Now he arose that same night. He took his 2 wives, and 2 maids, and his 11 children, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and he sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him. Now, I didn't look this up, but it says in Hosea 12:4, what Hosea says, it was evidently the pre-incarnate Christ that wrestled with Jacob that night. And so a man wrestled with him until daybreak. 25, when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said to him, what's your name? He said, Jacob. Remember, that means deceiver. He said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. And Israel means he fights or persists with God. Boy, that's kind of true today. Israel, the nation, is still fighting, maybe not so much with God as with their neighbors, but they still are prevailing. 29, and Jacob asked him and said, please tell me your name. But he said, what is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God. He says, I have seen God's face to face, yet my life has been preserved. If you have read any of the Old Testament, a lot of times they'll say, oh, if I see the face of God, I'll die. Well, he says, I saw the face of God, and I didn't die. Now, the sun rose before him just as he crossed over Peniel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore, to this day, the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. So you see, the Bible gives us even wrestling matches. Questions, comments?
I wonder how he fed all those animals when he was on the road.
Good question. He had no big trucks to haul hay on, did he? And a lot of it was desert land, and so he had nowhere to go find water for that many herds. And you think about, you can look at what he sent his brother Esau. That's just a portion of what he had. So.
Well, why would they want to eat whatever that word is, sinew? That's like a bone, isn't it, or cartilage?
I don't know.
They don't eat.
They don't eat around the hip. All I know for sure. They didn't eat it simply because that's of the story of Jacob, and the angel of God, or incarnate Christ, which is God in human form, dislocated his hip. So there's like a sign that, from God.
Do the Jews still practice that?
Some of them probably do.
The Orthodox?
Yeah, the ones, you see the ones that wear the black hats and got the beards, they probably do. And then you've got, there's to my knowledge, there's like 3 classes of Jews. You got those very ultra-conservative, old-fashioned, and you've got conservative, which might be kind of about like we are, and then you've got your liberal branch that really anything goes. So, of course, Jews, they don't believe in Christ. Salvation is, most Jews hold more to the fact that they have the land than anything else today. The land is what's important to them, because that's what God gave them. So, anybody else?
Well, why are they trying to overthrow Netanyahu?
Oh, that's just politics.
Politics.
Yeah.
Well, it's that.
He likes Trump.
That could be it. They got along very well.
Well, it was peace over there when.
Well, yes and no.
They
I
never been peace over there.
I mean, when Trump was in office, he sent his son-in-law over there, and they struck a deal.
Yeah, I mean, you think Trump took and was able to some of the Arab nations to form a peace agreement with